mate, did it ever feel like home for you over there? I imagine it did.
Completely. Yep. Completely. I mean, I've made the mistake over the last week or so saying home, and that's there, you know. Yep. When we're back home, it felt last house we had, I felt very comfortable. It was very homely. It had spaces for us all to go to our own space and work or meditate or do whatever you want to do. Wonderful views of the lake. It was a very big house. It was a 3-story house, so it was easy to escape from each other. At night, I could go downstairs and practice my steel guitar and make noise and not bother anybody, you know. Yeah. So that you know what that's like. Home is where your pillow is, kind of thing. And when your pillow's there for so long, and it was a kind of house that just made you feel good when you're in it. So when COVID hit, I was already working from home, so it wasn't like I was changing anything. I just had to put a mask on if I went to the store, you know.
Obviously, like people here and musicians here and everything, Nashville's got that aura about it of being this special, amazing place and everything else. And it's not a very big city, is it?
I think it's going to become another Atlanta. There's so many people moving there, but I mean, when we first got there, it felt more like a country town. Brisbane felt like it was really being, you know, getting very congested with traffic. And one of the frustrations I remembered before I left, I was actually on my mobile phone going to a gig, ringing your wife, actually saying, hey, I'm late for this gig. I'm caught in traffic. And then I got booked on my mobile phone. Oh. And I was thinking when I left, damn, you know, this is just getting crazy. You can't do anything on the road here. And then I got there and it was completely relaxed. I drove around that city for 13 years with never getting any speeding parking fine at all.
Yeah, right.
It's funny. So they're very lax on some things. So, and other things, obviously, they're not, you know.
Yeah. And what about all the turmoil lately? How did that affect you and the family? Like,
it actually did spread out in some areas close to us when the rioting was happening. And obviously we could hear things and there was a lot of gunshots going on. And they did try to burn down the Capitol building and all that kind of craziness. So I think we were 30 minutes from the downtown area. Our son was technically just to the right of downtown. So he saw a lot. He saw a lot with the tornado. He woke up in the morning after that. So basically it started tornado, COVID-19, Black Lives Matter rioting, back to COVID-19. So Ben woke up, opened his curtains, and there was a car in the 3rd floor of the building across from him. And he slept through the whole tornado.
Gee.
And then realized that he had no power. And then him and his fiance moved in with us then for the next so many months. They moved in and then because he had no power for a few days, and then they came back the whole 3 months of shutdown.
We had the earthquake in '94, Northridge earthquake, and that was where some freeways fell down, shopping centres fell down, and there were about 80 people killed, I think, in LA. But there was a big earthquake and scared the hell out of us. But when we first got there, I slept through the first earthquake we had.
Yeah,
little one.
I probably would too. You know, we had someone letting a shotgun off down our main street. We were on the corner of a main street in a cove, and my oldest daughter come to stay with us a couple of Christmases ago, and she thought we were playing tricks on her, shooting a gun off out the window to scare her. It was actually a real gun.
Well, that was one of the things that brought us home. We never felt comfortable in LA with the whole gun culture thing. And I mean, we lived in a bit of a redneck area in LA at the time. We were down near Redondo Beach. It was sort of a little bit off the highway, and you know, and it was kind of fairly safe around there. But we had a cop shot just up the road from us, and yeah, you'd be driving home from the studio at 3 or 4 in the morning, and you'd always see cops with people lined up against the wall and guns out and this stuff. And
that'd freak me out. Yeah, I didn't see much of that, and we lived in a very nice neighborhood. The houses at the end of our street were more expensive as our house, but you know, one of them just sold for well over $1 million. So it was on the water, very classy, nice homes. There's 3 sort of coves in a row with very kind of some, you know, a lot of music people. Garth Brooks's label manager for Pearl lived in the next street. Lizzie Hale and Joe from Hailstorm, the famous rock band. So there's a few music folks. Larry Carlton bought a house out there on the lake. So I never really felt threatened.
Yeah.
I mean, my neighbors would shoot a beaver or shoot something themselves alone, you know. But they were we were the youngest in the street, so that'll tell you.
Well, I think that's where LA was different back then anyway, because it was real gang culture then, and you had the Bloods and the Crips going on, and you'd be sitting in the shopping centre, and school kids would walk by, and because the school kids were all kind of in the gangs and they were wearing the loose clothing, you'd always be watching them. And I remember sitting back home when we came home, sitting at Stafford Shopping Centre. And I was what these school kids were walking by, and I was just keeping my eye on them out of the corner of my eye, and just like, mate, we're back here now. You don't have to do that here. Yeah, exactly. The other thing was carjacking.
Pull a firearm in their trousers,
Carjacking was big over there then too. So every time you turn up to the setup, pull up at a red light, you'd always make sure your windows were up, your doors were locked. You'd look around. You did back here, and it'd be like you just felt like stupid doing it. But there was good things for getting home. But mates, it's really good that I'm obviously as a mate, I'm glad you're back here, and you got all that we've all got that wealth of knowledge and skills and everything to tap into, mate, that you learnt over there. So what was your musical journey over there? What was your career? What'd you do?
Well, I think leaving here at that point in my career, I was making, as you know, a lot of records for people in the country music industry, and getting sort of poached out of that, and then having the producer skills and the musician skills and the publishing concepts. I think, the typical Aussie, I thought I knew everything until I got there and knew nothing, So it took me some time to then readapt to the American system, having multiple performing rights organizations, and then understanding how they all interact with the writers. And so I did music publishing and the demos for the publishing company. For the first few years, we built the catalogs, and that was kind of fun. A lot of songwriting, so that was fun. My wife did a bunch of songwriting too. And then, as you know, my son then developed into a musician, songwriter, guitar player.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about Ben in a while. But mate, just for people who maybe don't know much about it, just want to give a bit of an explanation for how the song publishing works, because I think it's, for a lot of younger artists here, it's not, because it's not as big an industry here, it's kind of gets overlooked in a lot of their education or their knowledge.
Well, I think that, over there, as I think TV creates fantasy, but to remove the fantasy, people in that culture will sometimes, not so much anymore as much as they used to, but it was a very song publishing, pitching, songwriters town when we got there. So meaning that they call it an outside song. So let's just build this around you for a minute. So let's say you were in Nashville, you were a signed songwriter to a publishing company. The publisher's job would be to exploit the copyrights in the song, meaning pitch that, create a really good demonstration of the song, and then pitch that to all the possibilities to get it cut on a big record from an artist that's signed to a major record label. That is the main focus of a publisher. Now, so it's turned more into a boutique record town where that still goes on, it's just not as much. A lot of artists now write their own material, or it's then getting to co-write with the artist, opposed to you could write with two other writers, and then a Clint Black or a Garth Brooks would cut that song and make you, a lot of money. Because when a song sits in the top 10 for 6 weeks, you can that songwriter could make $300,000 to $1 million, depending on how much airplay that song's getting,
And has it got affected by, back in our day, mate, when you had the albums or CDs, if you got your song on a Rick Springfield album, it didn't have to be the hit single, but you would make money because the album would sell. Has that changed a lot now with the streaming game where,
Well, to me, it's become, and you notice it more than, reverting back to my normal life as a record maker, most artists now come to producers and want, it's a singles game. So, you know, they're doing a lot more singles, and they're putting a lot more singles out a lot quicker than they ever used to. And then eventually it becomes an album on that platform. But
I mean, I hope it goes around, like the cycle goes around to like a song collection again, because I just remember how cool it was when I was watching a thing the other night, Paul McCartney live with Wings. And, you know, it obviously wasn't his highlight compared to the Beatles, but mate, I remember when Venus and Mars came
good.
out.
Me too. Yeah.
I love that album, and you'd study everything written in it. And Jackson Brown's Running on Empty was probably my favorite album of all time. And I knew every linear note on it, and I just loved just going on that journey. And it wasn't just about that song or that hit; it was the whole thing of the collection.
You just hit on Jackson Brown for a second. You know, Jackson said on that documentary that's, you know, available to the public, and, you know, I like to still call them records because because it's a record of events. And I thought he said it the best. That is so true. Because, you know, you being a songwriter, when I go back to the time when you and I collaborated on Four Poet Steps or, you know, Songs from the Fourth Floor, you were like Bernard Fanning calls it a purple patch. You know, you'll write because you're excited to write, because you're writing for a record. And all those songs are what's happening in your existence at that point in time.